In this video, we are going to cover HTML and client-server architecture model and the importance of usage of CSS and JavaScript in HTML. Okay. So first is HTML. HTML is used to define the structure in the web pages. So it's used to structure how to display your web pages. Okay. Before move on further about HTML, let's talk about the internet. The internet, the word is derived from the interconnected networks, which means it is a network connection that enables a connection of all the computers via the network connection. Okay. Internet allows computers all around the world to connect each other via the network. So this is what internet. Then what is browser? We have a Chrome browser, Firefox browser, Safari browser, right? So these are the tools used to access the data. Data, which means web pages. Web pages is made up of HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. We'll see one by one. So before move on, HTML, CSS, JavaScript, we should know about the client-server architecture model. Only then you will get to know and relate with how the applications work. Okay. So considering this case, client and server, we have one client and the server. This is a client-server architecture model which is connecting via the internet, and client requests something to the server and the server responding to the client's request. This is what the client-server architecture model works. Okay. Consider a case, you have a mobile and you have installed a WhatsApp as an application which is installed in your mobile, and we have a WhatsApp web server. This web server which is in their location. Okay. In our mobile, if you want to send any message to your friends, you can say just hi. The message you just type and send it, right? This will go to WhatsApp server and that message will be passed on to your friend. That is what happened. After that, what happened? Once you send the message to the server, and the server will send it back to your friend. After that, your friend saw your message, you will get the blue tick, right? So the blue tick confirmation is coming from this server to your mobile. So this is what happened. What your request is sending a message, the server is responding back you to whether the message is saw by your friend or not by the blue tick confirmation. So this is what happened. We can take another example. Let's say, for example, your friend sharing some image or video, anything you want to download, right? So first the image or a video will come into your WhatsApp. Then if you tap the download button, it will go to as a request to the WhatsApp web server. From that, the request will come to the server and respond back to allow you to download the resources. So this is what happening. Considering the client-server architecture model, we have two model. One is a two-tier architecture model and another one is a three-tier architecture model. Within the two-tier architecture model, we have a one client and one server. Within the one client, we have a presentation logic, we have a business logic, and the server, we can have a database logic with the database server. Okay, let's move on the three-tier architecture model. We have a clients and we have application servers, which means what and all the programming language will reside on this application servers, except database. Database will be reside as a separate server. So this is what the three-tier architecture model. These things we will get to know. So we will get familiar with once we go through the examples. And as I said, right, these are all the web browser is used to access the web pages. So there is nothing to install to read the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, so the built-in feature will handle all the things HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Okay, so what is HTML? Why it is important? HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, and this is not a programming language. Rather than we can say it's a formatting language. Formatting language, which means in a web pages we can have a text or images or any media elements that we need to represent to the end user. We should to format at the display, right? So that's what mean to say it's a formatting language. Okay, I hope you clearly understand what is HTML. And today the HTML is evolved. We have a HTML5 version, which is the evolved one. And within the HTML5, we have more semantic tags that we can use it, that we can see in coming slides. I always used to relate any programming language, any language with a real-time example. Okay, so considering this slide, I am just taking an example with the construction work. So I always used to compare with a real-time example so that it will be easily understand to you. Okay, HTML, what I told, defining the structure, right? So how will you build the structure when you build a home or any construction? So this is the structure, right? So that is how we can relate with the HTML. So the structure used to build for the construction work, the same thing will be applicable for when it comes to web pages. So we use HTML to build the structure of the web pages. So that is what the usage of this HTML. Let me move on further. Then what is cascading style? CSS. CSS is a style sheet language used to style markup language, which means we can have HTML or XML. So those things we can use CSS to style our HTML web pages. So in the HTML web pages, we can have any elements like a text or a image. We need some background or some colors for the text, right? So those things we can use with the help of the selector in the sense, either we can consider the tag of the tag name, or we can have a class name or ID name within the HTML tag. That way we can pick the selector. Based on the selector, we can apply the CSS styles. Okay, every web pages uses HTML and every web pages has its unique look with the CSS. Okay, so those things we can take a look at it in the further slides. How you can relate this CSS in a real-time example? Again, let me take the same example with the construction work. Once you define the structure, once you define and once you build the brickwork, what you will do for the construction work? You just paint the house, right? So the same way, once you build the structure of your web pages, you need to apply the style with the use the CSS language. Okay, there are some rules are there, so you just need to follow. Based on that, you can apply the styles like this, how you paint the house. I hope you're clear on this CSS part. Let me move on. JavaScript. JavaScript is the programming language that allows user to interact with the websites that you are visiting. You can make web pages with a dynamic element by using JavaScript. Okay, and today most of them are using JavaScript as a server-side scripting. We have the JavaScript is day by day it's evolved to the server side. So normally people are using in the olden days, traditional way, they have used JavaScript in the client side language only, but now we can use this JavaScript in the server side as well. Okay, and JavaScript also communicate asynchronously with the data servers in the background, which means once you say, for example, some Ajax call, something like that, so the JavaScript will communicate to the data servers asynchronously. It will without interruption with the user interface in the front end. Okay, so how will you relate these things? I mean, JavaScript in a real-time example. So you in the home construction, you will have a door, right? Once you open the door, only then you can enter. Likewise, we have a switch. Once you put on the switch on, the fan will run. So like that, the behavior will be on the house. Like the same thing, how the user behave in the web pages. So either he can open any form, he can submit the form, he can click the form. So like that, the behavior will be triggered. So for that purpose, we need to use the JavaScript to handle the interaction within the web pages. So that is what the purpose of using this JavaScript. Now we covered HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Now we are going to see why CSS and JavaScript important for HTML. As I said, right, HTML is a formatting language, not a programming language. But JavaScript is a programming language, and also it make HTML as a dynamic element, which means dynamically it will generate the HTML DOM to the web pages. So while the HTML can make it so that text is displayed on the screen, JavaScript can update the text, or it can animate something and something interactively to the front end. So that is what the purpose of this JavaScript. So we should think about dynamically how to leverage the JavaScript in our pages. Likewise, CSS. What the purpose of the CSS? I already told you that we can style the web pages using the CSS. So utilize that, we have to organize the look and feel of the website, and we can make the website easier to update and manipulate. As I said, right? So the real-time example, construction work. So HTML is used to define the structure. CSS is used to style your web pages, and JavaScript is used to create a dynamic and interactive to the web pages. Okay, so all things are important in the web pages. So think about, if you build a construction, right, you define the structure, you build the layout. That is not good, right? So after you build the layout, you need to paint the house, and you need to fit the door, light switch and all, right? So that is how we can relate how CSS and JavaScript is important for HTML web pages. Okay.